Howdoo guys, it's Scott here from Nightfall Minis, and today I'm going to show you how anybody, for super cheap and for very little amount of time, can make some super awesome dungeon tiles for your D&D and Warhammer games. So as a bit of a background for this, I've never really been into terrain building myself too much. I've been a painter for quite a few years, a bit of a collector, but never so much necessarily the building of terrain. And I've seen a few tutorials online, especially with like Luke's APS, Blackmagic Craft, and Miniac, and to name a few others, Squidmar for instance. And I've kind of seen what they've done with terrain. I've got really into it recently, and I've just thought to myself, I've started running a D&D campaign and I'm getting to a point now where they're going to start going into dungeons. Now, how do you represent a dungeon necessarily on a table when you haven't got a printed mat? So for me, the easiest way was start looking to dungeon tiles. And I've seen a few bits and pieces around on YouTube and some sort of Reddit posts show you how to make dungeon tiles. And I've kind of found my own way of doing it. And it's super easy, super cheap. I think I bought a huge thing of this. It was like 2.5 meters by 1.8 meters. And it's like super thin, 10mm. XPS foam, and it's carpet underlay, and it cost me £8 from Amazon. And even with everything going on right now, it came in like 3 days, so it wasn't a massive wait either, despite everything that's going on in the world. I want to keep myself busy and I want to keep my YouTube channel going. I've not been able to upload for quite a while due to work, but with current circumstances, it just gives me a nice bit of an opportunity to kind of come and show you guys some really cool terrain tutorials, see how you feel about it, and then I can do some more in the future. I did my first ever scratch build using foam core, and I really liked the way it turned out, and I thought it was quite decent. So I started posting it on my Instagram. You should give a follow on Instagram just there, if you haven't already. And I was posting some progress pictures on there, and then I put it on Reddit, and it kind of blew up overnight, and I was really impressed with it, and a lot of people were asking me how I did it. And I kind of got to thinking, maybe a lot of people don't realise how easy it is to build with this sort of stuff. A lot of it is measuring and measuring twice before you cut, making sure things join together and you don't destroy it all with spray paint. But I kind of got thinking maybe that's something you guys would like to see. So here we go. Let me show you how super cheap, super simple it is to make dungeon tiles for your D&D games, Warhammer games, miniature games, Malifaux, whatever you play. So guys, these simple dungeon tiles are about 3" by 3". It seems to be the sort of standard. So what I've done here is I've just cut a 3" strip from that XPS foam just by setting my little carpenter's right angle that I've got. Set at 3", cut down and scored it, and then literally cut it down into 3 inches as well. On this strip I've ended up with 7 little bits of dungeon tile and then a little bit of an excess cut off. And I've put that to one side and use that for bricks and other stuff later on. So your first step is just to mark out a 1" square grid. So basically you're dividing your 3" squares into 9 1" squares. Super easy just to go around the edges, mark a 1" grid all the way around it, and you'll be left with a 1" square in the middle as well. So next I'm going to grab my hobby knife. I'm using Stanley in this case. I'm just going to score down a millimetre or so down each of the lines. Just freehand it so you've got a little bit of variation. And make sure that I also go around the edges as well. This is at the end of the day 3D tile, it's not a flat 2D tile. So just go around, score all the edges as well, and give it a little bit of depth. Following then up by a ballpoint pen. This is just going to give it more of like a V shape. If you do this originally with a ballpoint pen, you're going to pull the foam and it's going to leave it not looking very nice, a bit unsightly. But by doing it with a knife to start with and then making the grooves deeper, it just looks a bit tidier. To add some stone texture, I'm going to use something really simple. It's a little ball of tin foil that I've just rolled up. And you're going to rub this over all the tile, make sure you get all the edges, all the sides, all the corners, and make sure you get the top. It's going to give it a really cool stone looking effect without you having to put too much effort into it. It's really cool, really simple. I managed to do all of these 7 tiles in less than 5 minutes with the same piece of tin foil. You can jam it in if you want to get a bit more damage on the edges and stuff, and the bruising and the sort of dimples that you're going to get in it is going to give a really nice stone texture. And then to further emphasise the fact of wear and tear and damage, I'm just using the ballpoint pen and putting in some cracks in the actual tiles themselves. Make sure to go down the edges and the sides as well. And you're going to do this on pretty much all of the tiles. It doesn't matter which way you do this. I'm doing it here, doing the cracks first and then doing the stone. But I did the stone first and then the cracks later on. It makes no difference, to be fair. It's still going to give the same sort of damaged appearance. What you want in here is a weathered looking stone with some cracks in the tiles to show that they're not brand new. For even more of a weathered effect and appearance, I'm just now running around with the knife and I'm kind of scratching up the edges a little bit, chipping away some of the bits and pieces that's on there as well, taking some chips and some chunks out of there. This is just another way of showing wear and tear and damage. Don't go too mad, but you know, put in as much as you feel looks realistic. And then finally onto priming. So for this, because it's XPS foam, I want to make sure it's nice and sealed and it's protected, it's going to last for a long time. So I'm using Mod Podge Matte Medium, or matte glue, whatever it's called. I've only just bought this and I love it. I've got some tips and stuff off some other YouTubers about how cool this stuff is to use. It's better than PVA glue, don't ask me why, but apparently it is. So I've used this and I've just mixed it in with some cheapo black acrylic. I got this from a discount art website. Even with everything going on currently in the world, I managed to get this in like less than a week and it cost me like £2 or £3. You might think it's getting put on quite thick, but don't worry, it is being watered down with a wet brush. So this is being applied using a wet brush at the same time. This is going to get into all the cracks and crevices. It's going to seal it, but most importantly, it's going to keep all that detail. Because we've had such amazing weather in the UK at the minute, I've just left these outside just to dry in sun. And it took less than half an hour for them to dry, and you can see it's dried really nice, and it's given a really nice sort of solid coat on there as well, which is quite decent. Now for a base on this, I'm going to go with quite a heavy dry brush using the same acrylic black that I use for the primer, but also mixing just a little bit of Vallejo white. This is going to give it a bit of a dark texture, and I want in quite a thick dry brush on this. The reason being is I don't want to necessarily get into the cracks, but I'm not also worried about covering the majority of it. You want about 90% coverage on this. Just leave the cracks and leave the grout lines, the grooves and stuff free. Shouldn't take too long just to go over this and give it a bit of a blast. The second stage of dry brush, I'm just adding a little bit more white, giving it a mix and going on with a bit of a lighter sort of dry brush. I'm wanting about 50% coverage on this now. This is where you're going to start getting it a little bit lighter, a little bit more stone coloured. Don't worry too much if it looks a bit too light or a little bit cartoonish. We're going to dull that down later on. As you can see through this process, I'm not even using a new brush or cleaning it off. I'm using the same brush. So when we go to the last stage, which is almost pure white, this is going to still have some of the grey left in the dry brush. So when I'm going through this and I'm catching just the edges to give it a final highlight, it's not going to be as stark white as what you'd expect. It's going to be more of like a very, very light grey. But this is going to be your final highlight on these dungeon tiles. The final step of this project is using a wash. Now I've made a homemade wash. It's basically just like a Nuln Oil or Agrax Earthshade, depending which colour I want. But I've made this myself using cheap acrylics, a bit of water, and a little bit of like washing up liquid, bit of fairy, and it works just as well. But you're not using your expensive GW stuff. Now you can use this by brush, but I have found a new method which I absolutely adore, and this is by using an atomizer spray bottle. I got these from Amazon, like a pack of 5 for like a £5. It weren't expensive at all, but it atomizes a spray. So if you want to get a better coverage real quick, all you need to do is literally fill this up with your homemade mix or your homemade wash and just give it a spray straight over tiles, and all those recesses will get a really nice dark deep sort of shading effect to it, and it'll also dull down some of those edge highlights that you've done. And this is what you're going to be left with, some awesome looking table ready modular dungeon tiles that can build to any size, any shape or anything you want to represent the dungeon for your D&D or Warhammer, whatever you play in. So guys, I really hope that tutorial helped you out today, and I really hope that you've picked something up from it. And if you've got any questions, don't forget to leave us a nice comment just in the down there, and if you give this video a like, that really helps me out. It helps me to get discovered a bit more. So I appreciate all your support. Subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit the bell notification, because that's the only way YouTube seems to tell people that you've uploaded. So that's the only way you're going to know if there's any more videos. Let us know if you want to see more stuff like this in the future. And there's going to be a list in the description below of everything that I've used and step-by-step tutorials in case you're stuck. But don't forget, just leave us a comment and I'll respond back to you as fast as I can do, and I'll try and help you out. If you'd like to help the channel a little bit more, you can always donate to my Patreon. $1 for Patreon just puts towards getting me a coffee. So when I'm busy, I'm doing this sort of stuff and the kids are all in bed and I'm trying to stay up until gone midnight to record some stuff for you guys, it kind of keeps me awake, so I really appreciate it. But as always guys, cheers for watching, appreciate your support, catch you next time.